Hello, guys. Hi. Once we get the microphones turned on, we can get the panel started.
Oh, there's some signal coming through on that one.
Yes. Are you eating up the data?
I think so. Oh yeah, there is. Okay, they're just turned down. How's that?
It's not on.
It's not on.
No,
That one is.
It's on.
Let's get it on, and that one's probably on as well.
Is it on? It is on. Is it?
Yeah.
All right,
Okay. How's that? Chickadee check check one. In the house.
All right. Okay, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. This is Muggsy. He is our ethical hacker. So we're going to be doing a little bit of a Q&A. There will be some audience participation at the end. So if you got any questions, just wait till then. And see what he said.
I'm easy. What would you prefer, audience?
Sit.
Okay, just sit. Yeah.
Sit.
There we go. Yeah.
All right. So, what is ethical hacking?
So, ethical hacking. I think the first question within there is like, what is hacking?
What's hacking?
What is hacking? And how can it be ethical or unethical? And so hacking is the art of gaining access into computer systems or premises. It could be any kind of target. And the idea is to do it without being detected until you let them know that you've got in. So hacking as a term has had lots of mutations in recent years, where it can mean like fiddling with electronics. The kind of hacking that we're talking about is very firmly in the kind of criminal area, unless it's ethical, unless it's basically authorized.
Anything that's outside of the legality, if it's not legal, then you're getting done for it, basically.
That's it. So if it's been authorized, so you've got to have actual like legal authorization to.
Does that come from the government?
It will come from whoever owns the system. And there's a bit of a sticky issue there, because the person who is authorizing it has to have authorization to authorize it. So it's a bit of a Russian doll effect there.
So you essentially have to allow yourself to get hacked.
Yeah, it's a kind of an elective practice. So imagine you've just got a state-of-the-art security system for your mansion in Miami, and you want to know that the security system works. How do you know that it works? The person doing the install could just say, hey, I've installed it and it works. But you need to actually assess whether it works by triggering it. So ethical hacking is essentially the art form, if you like, of triggering defenses and making sure that the security controls, is what they're called, are effective.
Okay, so how did you get into hacking? How does one get into hacking?
So, two good questions there. My answer to that is that I watched the film Hackers, which I would recommend that everybody does. And I watched it when I was 13, and what I took away from that was, okay, I'm a hacker. And I identified as a hacker immediately. So I didn't have any technical skill. It was a mindset. It's a kind of anti-establishment form of independence. It's like, how can I like fantasize about turning on the sprinklers in school or something like
Curiosity,
that?
I guess.
Curiosity, yeah. Mischief, not wanting to be told what the rules are without respecting the person who's telling you what the rules are. So in some senses, it's quite punk, and that's why we have like the whole cyberpunk aesthetic. So cyberpunk is essentially like being a punk on the internet. So that's how I got into hacking. Actually, when I became an actual capable hacker was because I was a cocky little dickhead when I was 13, and I would say to people, yeah, exactly right, and I would say to people on the internet things that suggested that I had access into their system. I didn't, but I was fantasizing about it. And one day somebody was like, what? I said, oh, your desktop's really cluttered, it's got lots of icons on it. And this guy was a hacker. So he quickly just logged straight into my machine, because I was a complete novice in terms of security. And it turns out I had loads of malware running on it, and I was a sitting duck. And by malware, that means like being able to enable remote access into your computer. So he was like, okay, so this kid is like suggesting that he's hacked me, and he did what's called a port scan on me, which is like assessing my exposure to the internet. And he quickly figured out that I was a complete noob and decided to delete everything on my hard drive. So I was definitely asking for that. It's a bit like pretending you know Kung Fu and then just getting knocked out. It's like, you need that, I think.
Yeah.
So at that point, I ran round to my school buddy's house and I was like, oh my God, I just got hacked. I was like, and my kind of trauma response was to go to the library and learn about networking and the Linux operating system or the Unix operating system.
Okay.
And that was my journey. For other people, it's actually more straightforward. So learning now about how to be a hacker doesn't require going to a library, and it doesn't require, I used to print out pages off the internet and they were like really whack, but I would do it. And I would be like, yes, and I had a really cute little yellow binder full of like printouts of like how to do hacker stuff. But the resources, they were not as rich as they are now. So if somebody wants to become an ethical hacker now, there is a clear roadmap. And I definitely recommend it because it is the most amazing gig you could ever do. It's like packed full of fun. It's basically like playing games, and it also means you can legally be paid to think like a criminal, which is wonderful.
That's the question.
No.
Okay.
So one of the best things about it is that you can appeal to whatever your strengths are. So if you're good at communication, you can just use your communication skills. So I've done engagements, which is what they're called, an engagement where I don't use any technology, not even a phone, walking into a building and gaining access to somewhere that I shouldn't.
But I've actually watched this video of someone called Gamo, and he would like break access into buildings by virtually just printing out a like ID card of where that company is from, and they just get in through that. They'll just scan a fake ID card, get in through security very easily. So that would be like the physical side of hacking.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of being hacked, other than like phishing, which would be through emails or something like that, what are like symptoms of hacking that someone could kind of clock over time on their laptop that would show that someone's kind of sneaky looking at their stuff?
That's a good question. I think the proactive way to address it would be that ultimately you won't know if somebody doesn't want you to detect them, and that was my initial point, is that if your aggressor wants you to know that they're there, they can let you know.
They can look around you a little bit.
Yeah, open your CD drive. Back in the day was the thing, or there's a really fun script which will make a command prompt pop up, and Rick Astley will appear in what's called ASCII text and do the Never Gonna Give You Up dance with the music. At that point, you're like, I think I might have been hacked.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of trick that hackers would play on each other, really. I think that for the regular non-hacker civilian, you probably won't know. So it's reversing the kind of the lens on that. Ask yourself, do I use the same password for everything? That's the first thing. That's because if you do, somebody has probably gained access to some of your stuff and you just wouldn't have any access.
Like notifications you get, and it's like your password has been compromised.
Exactly.
Yeah. Everyone's like, fuck.
Yeah. Password 1, rumbled.
There's like certain passwords you shouldn't do as well. Like anyone's names in your family, any pets you have. Everyone's like gonna go change the passwords now.
Yeah. ABC123 is not good.
Anything 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Or like that you can like go like this with on your laptop. You probably shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
As well. But then it's also hard creating multiple passwords. So I don't do this personally. I'm going to cover my trail there in case no one's trying to hack me. You actually probably are the person in this room that could. But yeah, like creating multiple passwords for different things, you're going to end up forgetting it. Let's say you keep a little file or like a notes file on your phone with like certain passwords that you have. Bad idea.
Don't do that.
Do that.
So 2 bits of advice for everyone. 1, use a password manager. Okay, so something like there's LastPass. It's like a browser extension.
It's not sponsored, by the way.
No, it's also free, which is handy.
Free too.
But that means that even you don't know what your passwords are because you don't even want to. Like they're that complex that you would never be able to remember it.
But does it just come up on like little software?
Exactly. So it will fill in the password forms for you. Another thing that's really, really important is what's called multi-factor authentication. So that means like if I go to log into any of my stuff, I have to enter in a 6-digit number. And I have to get that from my phone. So the reason for that is that it proves that, yes, I know my password, I know my email address, but I also have a device which I own. And for me to get into my phone, it scans my face. And so there's like multi-layered defenses there. So the likelihood of somebody else being able to trivially log in, like in the case of when you've got a compromised password, if you've got the same password for like one website as another website, and the first website gets hacked, that means that your account on the second one is very, very at risk. If you've got multi-factor authentication, it's not, because they haven't got your phone. They will just try once and give up. And that's where you want to get to. You want them to just give up after the first try.
Okay, but that's not what happens usually, is it?
It is, but the thing is, the reason that it seems like it isn't is because you don't know about all the failed attempts. So if I've got 10,000 passwords and 80% of them don't work, it's only the 20% that go, oh, my account got hacked. The other 80% have got no idea that anybody even tried.
What do you think some skills are that people could have now that they might not know would be great in like a ethical hacker environment?
Wow, well, Googling, I'm sure none of you have ever done any cyber stalking. Yeah, there's none in this room, are there? Yeah. So that is actually a whole practice. It's called open source intelligence gathering. So it's information that's out there on the internet, and
if you're good at finding out what your like ex is doing all the time, if you're still on that vibe, then you might be good at this.
Yeah, well, in fact, I would go as far as to say somebody doing that is already good at it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
They're already doing it. So it's just like
that little like Insta account that you don't use, but you just use the pre. You're there. You're fucking there. You're him. You're basically him.
Yeah. That's called a puppet account.
See? That's great. So we're gonna say a little story time about how we met, essentially, and why I think that it's really fun and interesting. So I was actually serving his table while I was still working at The Alchemist, and he was there with like a bunch of artwork, and I remember just being like, what the fuck is this? What are you up to? And you're like, oh yeah, like I'm doing this cool technological art, and you've managed to incorporate, technology elements of hacking, and you've made this whole room, you made it into artwork. What are the links to that? Because you wouldn't usually think someone who was a hacker would then kind of find interest and be able to do artwork with that. Mm-hmm. So what have you used in your room?
So in the room, all of it is evidence from hacking engagements. Some of them aren't me, which are the illegal ones. Some of them are me, which are legal. All the legal ones are me, and also we've got Callum here, who is on my what's called red team, which is an attack team. And so during an engagement, we have to collect evidence that shows what we've been up to, basically. And that has been redacted, and I've basically turned it into a design aesthetic. So in there, it's all evidence of attacks going back to the year 2000. And there's basically a mix of three. One of them is something which I called Knock Knock, and it's where you'll see it's got like unicorns and love hearts. And that one is where I found a bunch of servers on the internet that basically were sharing a message saying, please don't hack me. If you do, you will be prosecuted and we will find you. So please just don't. And then what I've done is, without doing anything, is basically like playing Knockdown Ginger or like the idea of just knocking, just knocked, I haven't done anything, and just receiving that message and recording it, and then beautifying it so that if it ever is in a court of law, then I have to play that, and I'd be able to. Yeah, exactly. It's like, look, dude, it's got unicorns on it, so clearly there's nothing malicious.
Yeah, exactly. Your game did you create that game? So there is a game next door that you can have a little play with if you want to play. Did you create it? How did you kind of think of the idea to bring it into your art?
So that is a game which was created and coded over several years by my collaborator Pavel, who's in my phone as Pavel the Hacker, who is a very sick programmer, and he's made this game engine. So it's not like an off-the-shelf game engine, because in the art world at the minute, I think there's the Unreal engine, it's called, that gets used quite a lot. But basically, this is a one of a kind, and it's been created especially. So this galaxy that I've designed, it's like a constellation of naughty bits of information, basically. And yeah, so you can have a little fly around in there, and you can see that there's a mixture of evidence from hacks, which I have like turned, instead of being green text on black, which is the typical hacker aesthetic, I've made it pink on white. So I'm kind of like mixing it up. And
unicorn, like the
yes, exactly. It's like, let's make hacking pink again.
Make it cute and approachable.
Exactly.
All my data, it's like, oh, it's in a cute way.
Exactly, and that's also what we were doing here with the sound. If anybody heard what was going on with the sound, that's a beautiful little carnivorous alien plant that consumes data, and it gorges itself silly on your data.
Later, he had it on his phone. What does it do? It connects to the internet, right?
It connects to the internet, but you have to connect to it, so you can feed it by connecting to a Wi-Fi signal called "Let Me Eat You," which I hope is self-explanatory. But yeah, so at that point, the plant, it doesn't have a name because it's an alien. It will grow and it will kind of flourish. And you know, I like to see every living creature flourish, even if it's consuming us.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Does anyone have any questions at all? MXZ? Yes. You.
Yeah. You mentioned you had your phone recognizes your face and lets you into your phone.
Yeah.
As a hacker, does that concern you?
No. So I have worked on these facial recognition systems when I've designed some of the security for a digital bank, and I'm aware of the kind of the failures that can happen with facial recognition. But when it's built into the phone, it is looking to make sure that, one, your face is not a screen. It's making sure that it's moving. But that's with an up-to-date phone. So with older ones, there were some, I think some Apple ones, which you could actually hold up a picture of somebody's face and it would unlock. And that's obviously like not good. But no, I'm not concerned at all. I think it's quite handy, because the idea of using things like a PIN number, if you're just like shoulder surfing somebody, as it's known, on the tube, you can find out what their PIN number is quite easily. Also, it could be like, it might be that there are fingerprint smudges like more frequently on their PIN number. So knowing a number is more of a security risk than modern facial recognition. But we'll see what happens with deep fakes and high resolution screens. You know, I don't think, I think it's an arms war that will always be in progress.
Definitely.
But good question.
When we speak about hacking and we kind of speak about where we're heading now in terms of technology and how much information we have online, it can only really increase now, I think, how much we rely on that. In terms of the multiverse and NFTs and creating your own, essentially, avatar online. Do you have a lot to say about that?
Yeah, I do. I think that essentially, it's like it boils down to whether we buy our identity. So, like buying an avatar, it depends on your, I suppose, your personality profile. Like if you would consider an avatar created by somebody else to be representative of you, that's fair enough. But it's basically, I think I'm cynical in the sense that it is a way of getting people to pay for the internet, because if you think about how we don't actually pay for internet access, we just have advertising. It's a way of getting those little gains. So it's getting us spending money on the internet, I think.
Being like hacked through that, would that be easier, do you think?
Yeah, big
You
time.
have a lot more, I guess, assets online.
Yes.
Right, in the multiverse.
Yeah.
And you have NFTs and crypto and Bitcoin and all of that.
Yeah.
Words that I'm not really sure what they mean, but you know, we're here. How would you protect that? How does one go about protecting that?
Well, that's a really difficult question, because basically in cryptocurrency, you have a wallet. Now, unless you've actually written your own wallet, then somebody else who you don't know is actually the arbiter of all of your cash. And because if you've got your money in a bank, there are like regulations, of course. With a wallet, if the person who wrote the code for your wallet decided to just steal everybody's money, one day they could. Because they control all of the logic inside the wallet. So, like, starting from that position, it only gets more fragile as you go up the chain. But I mean, there are so many scams all the time. Like there's a Twitter account called like Crypto Bros Taking L's, and like there's like because you know
Is that you that runs that?
I wish.
You're like, yeah, there's this like Twitter account. It's called, like Crypto Bros.
Yeah, click this link. But there was somebody on there somebody on Twitter who said, "I can't believe somebody's stolen all my NFTs and my wallet got hacked." And somebody replied to it and said, and because there were bots that will replies and says, "Oh, that same happened to me. Reach out to this handle on Instagram and they'll help you." And the crypto bro goes, "Yeah, oh cool, yeah, I'll reach out to them." It's like it's just another scam.
When we talk about scams, actually, and NFTs, there's a bit of talk right now about money laundering through NFTs. So let's say you were going to buy your own NFT. With artwork, you can essentially take your pick in terms of the price, and depending on someone, if they want to buy it for that price, then they can. No one can really say anything about it. That's similar to fine art. So I think that that's a good comparison as well, because with technology kind of increasing, there's this fear-mongering process in which people are made to feel like they're either in it and they understand it and they're educated and aware, or they take a back seat and they're like, I don't want anything to do with it. How would someone kind of get introduced to that? Well, actually, that was like quite a lot. There was like 3 things I said in there, but in terms of money laundering and NFTs, if one was to money laundering through an NFT, how would one do that? In terms of...
You can pay for cryptocurrency in cash through the mail, and then you just buy the NFT for the owner who's killing the money for you. And it's so you can basically buy crypto with cash.
Oh.
And then you pay that on an NFT, and then you essentially can sell it to yourself, or someone can sell it to you, and you declare that as an earning, pay tax on it, capital gains tax, I think. And then you've got clean money.
There we go. For legal reasons, that was a joke. But I will be seeing you at the end of it. That's really cool. That's very nice. We can always do that. Then things go wrong. But in terms of the law and hacking, is there anything that you feel like should change in order to support ethical hackers more?
Oh, that's a good question. So, because I was thinking about actually not how to help ethical hackers, but like for the rest of you fine folks on the internet, because like I've been on the internet since the 90s. I've certainly seen it change. And in terms of helping hackers, I think there's lots and lots of help out there. I think that the most helpful dimension that we could have to actually help hackers is increased awareness of neurodiversity and building personality types and behaviors into like the hiring process, because I think that's quite arbitrary. It's basically it's also the same as any other kind of professional gig where you can have a good boss, you can have a bad boss, but I think people can be a lot more affected in the ethical hacking community because we do have a really an increased amount of people that are further along the neurodiversity spectrum than you would have in, say, marketing. And I think that those people will be kind of overlooked because some people just want to be spending time just like writing code and being in the computer realm rather than like being in cyberspace, rather than kind of the more soft skills. And I think that's it just needs to be, I think, more formally recognised. I think there's a lot of work that we could do as an industry on that. Also, I think there is, in this country, in the UK, there is like a gender problem. So in the States, like the biggest hacker conferences, the gender split is about 60% men, 40% women. Over here, it's like 95% men, which is like really unfortunate because and it also feeds into the neurodiversity aspect, because a lot of the best leaders that I've worked with in the industry are women, because they take the time to actually appreciate people, rather than men are like much more result focused. And yeah, I think that there's a lot to do in that realm, but I think there are programs like Women in Tech and that kind of thing. Girls Will Code, yeah. And but I think also just even one thing that I've made inroads on is like changing some of the language that we use, which isn't very like inclusive. So ethical hacking has the term penetration testing, and I've had customers who are women, and they're like, "Please don't call it that." And I'm like, "I hear you," and like, because that's very military. So a lot of it has come from the military. So that's why we use terms like engagements and operations and exercises and penetration, because in a military operation, you penetrate your adversary's defense. So I think changing the language that we use, and it is, and I actually think that there should be a distinct effort towards ethical hacking as well as coding, because people associate coding with hacking. I'm not a coder, and there's plenty of people who aren't coders, and yeah, I think women who hack, like, we could have more events like that, because I've had employers where I've been like, let's get the right mix on the team, and they just wait for the applications to come in, and all the applications come from men. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not my place to go to a women's recruitment event. Like, I can't do that, but I've tried to encourage it, but I haven't had any leeway with that.
I think there is a problem with the internet just not really being a very safe space for women. I feel like I watched this kind of interview with a hacker who happened to be a female, and she said when she kind of first broke into hacking and being online and being at events, she would get really sick comments, like sick in a bad way obviously, from male colleagues or just people online. And you see it now, like you see a girl or of someone posting something, and a lot of the negative comments are very misogynistic towards women. And I don't think that women feel like hacking, I don't even feel like they feel like coding or that world is for them, because when you walk into a room and it is full of men, it's not comforting at all. Like, that is the truth. It's not comforting. And the law is like that as well, the legal world. When you kind of get higher up and you start applying to, let's say, firms, a lot of tech firms, majority of the men who are partners are men. Majority of the people that are partners are men, and it's discouraging. But in terms of making things more inclusive, other than events, do you feel like the language between you guys as a community can be improved? Have you heard comments from colleagues and you think, maybe the community needs to do a little bit more as well?
I think I've raised this in I've got a WhatsApp group full of like the best hackers that I know, and I've raised this issue, and the response that I got wasn't that encouraging. It's like, well, we are trying to hire women, was the response I got.
We're doing our bit.
Yeah.
We're ticking the box of making it inclusive, so that's it.
Yeah. And that's one thing. I think on the other side, on the flip side, like in my personal experience, I tend to work with people that are very empathic, and like on my team, like we're all cancers, and we're all like really, really softies. We're all born within 10 days of each other, and I think like that's the kind of team that I like to work on. So I'm aware that there are other teams who are much more like they have this kind of almost like football fan, yeah. And that approach, they actually have it not just towards women or each other. They have it towards their customers. Like they think of penetrating the defenses of their customers makes their customer an idiot. And I've heard that kind of language, and they're like, oh, those idiots. And it's like, whoa, aren't we here to help people? So that's why I do it. I think that's why a lot of people that I work with do it, because we want to help people who otherwise wouldn't have somebody in their corner. But yeah, so basically, long story short, in my circles that I move in, it is pretty like positive. Yeah, exactly. But I'm aware that that is probably the exception.
Do you think that if you learn about hacking kind of in school in a way that wasn't so stereotypically bad, because we do kind of think of hack, and also you see all these movies online and it's like people can hack like you watch those like sci-fi things, and someone's like, go and hack this system, and it takes them like they're like there for like 5 seconds, and then they hack it.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah. So realistically, the timing is okay, but in general, what would your day-to-day be? Would it be like that, or would it be a lot more structured?
Oh, day to day, like has to be by virtue of like how we operate, has to be very structured. We actually plan things in advance, and this is because like everything that we do has to be justifiable. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. So, because things can go wrong. So, for example, I was working on something, and it's funny that I was working on something. Like, if I'm working on something, it's not good news for the person I'm working with. But anyway, it's like this big system that like dealt with an enormous amount of money, more money than I've ever seen actually in numbers in my life, really? Like 10 digits.
10?
Yeah, and I was doing it on a Sunday, and on a Sunday on what's called a production server. And I did something and it stopped responding to me. And I was like, oh my God. And of course, they got no idea that I'm in there. So everything has to be justifiable in case something goes wrong. Now, fortunately, it looked like it had gone wrong, but it was temporary. And I was like, but I absolutely just like, I drained of every fluid, I think. But that's why it's really, really important, because we do things really carefully and as safely as possible. And we measure that safety. And also, like, because we're, by definition, ethical, we want to do whatever has the best impact to the person that we are simulating an attack on.
Yeah. Is there any kind of, not horror stories, but would you have anything that people would be really shocked about that they could probably find out from their online kind of life? Is there anything that people here would probably be shocked at, like that what they're just doing on their phone or what they're doing on their laptop, they could accumulate all of those little things and figure out quite a big part of their like personality and life and stuff?
Well, I think there are two answers to that, and one of them is like from a personal perspective, you could just as a fun exercise, like ask one of your friends to cyber stalk you and see what they find out, especially somebody who's got a bit of a rep for like 2 a.m. accidental likes. Get that person to help you out. And so that's the one thing. I think like as a kind of like a peer thing, doing it for each other and seeing what you can find out and gamifying it, and it's helping each other and it's like a bit of a giggle.
I did something like that with my friends. So like when it was lockdown, I don't know if anyone remembers, but everyone was doing like presentations like during lockdown. So me and my flat, we did a presentation, and mine was like guess who posted this? And I went back in like 2012 to my flatmates' like Facebook posts, and they had no idea. To be fair, it was so embarrassing for them. I had such a good time. They were like staring at the screen like, who is that? And then I would like reveal it, and they'll be like, nah, that's not me. That couldn't have been me. So it is those things, and like you don't remember a lot of stuff you deleted, and it's kind of like I feel like now with getting cancelled, let's say, and like the political climate and all of that, kind of going back in time and seeing what people posted, that could bite you in the ass one day, very much so. So is there any kind of systems in place where you can kind of go and see everything you posted and delete them like as a whole? Or you have to do that yourself?
As far as I'm aware, that would be something you have to do yourself. Yeah. Although I would say I'm also not like an expert on that level of security, really. That's kind of outside of my remit, because it's a bit more localized, a bit more personal, a bit more kind of civilian level security. So I would think that the first thing that you could do is just like open your web browser in private mode and look at all your social media profiles for a start, just to see what somebody who isn't you can see. That's a start. And while you're there, just like enable multi-factor on all your accounts as well. That helps. But in terms of what you posted in the past, I think, that's got to be, that has to be curated. I think you've got to curate your own deletion of your history.
Yeah, perfect. Does anyone? Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to know what your views on NFTs were at the moment and their uses.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think with there is a really healthy community. I've heard it described as a village and a team. Basically, like if you're in the village, and especially artists that are on the non-Ethereum marketplaces where things might cost a fiver. It seems really wholesome to me, like that stuff where it isn't about chasing money. It's just like somebody who is just creating art all the time. Like, I mean, I find I'm doing that all the time, just like knocking stuff up. But I reserve it for like exhibiting. For other people, they just put it straight out on the internet, and it's a way of putting it somewhere where it has its own legacy and it will remain there for as long as the marketplace remains there, and it kind of adds a bit of albeit like capitalist via its lens. Like, it does add a kind of closure. It's like saying, I've made this artwork, I put it on the marketplace, one day somebody might buy it, and that's really wholesome. And like I've seen that there's a big momentum around artists collecting each other's work, and that's a wonderful thing. Like, artists collecting other artists, that's brilliant. Instead of like trying to sell it in IKEA or something, like it's just that is a really good natural and organic growth of a community. However, there is the other side of it, which is that it is seen as a get-rich-quick scheme. So people who want to get paid for their internet presence are effectively able to put up a paywall in front of their content. So it depends on your kind of your political leaning as an artist, because I personally don't know many artists who are who are obsessed with the price of their work so much as the quality and the meaning for them and the overall process. I think with especially the very brisk NFT markets, it's the opposite of that, and it's like, how can I make something and like maybe get lucky and make a mill, which is a completely different activity, mentally, to the rest of the art process. So I've seen, for example, like there are established artists, like good artists, who are able now to say, well, you can only follow my other Instagram if you've got my token. So they're able to like create a currency, like a cryptocurrency, which has their name in it, and then you have to buy it to support them. So in some ways, it's like using Patreon or OnlyFans or whatever. It's like ultimately supporting somebody. And that can be wholesome, it can be not. Personally, I find it a bit like elitist. So if you've got a Discord, which is a chat room, and you can only get into that Discord if you've got a particular token, it's just another members club. And ultimately, what does the members club come down to? Clout and money. So it depends like who you want to rub shoulders with, because the people that are there are also going to be people that, they care about clout and money. So, everyone's different, basically.
Yeah. Essentially, it's like, it's not a one rule fits all, similar to the art world. And I think it's easier for now, I guess, with everyone putting their focus on NFTs to kind of address all the problems within NFTs and being like, okay, well, it is a get rich quick scheme. But realistically, that kind of has been happening within higher communities with fine art for a very, very long time. If you think of the biggest art collectors, they are people who are billionaires and they are kind of hogging that space. So it's not the fact that there's NFTs available that therefore now there is a problem. It's that there has always been this problem, and NFTs have maybe highlighted it maybe a bit more, because NFTs are a lot more accessible, which is a great thing. I think to be able to go online and make something and someone find value in that is a lot quicker than, trying to make it, I guess, in the art world in terms of physical art.
And I think spinning it round and thinking about who's buying it, like who the consumer is, in my opinion, there are two modes of buying art. One is to decorate your life. The other is because you think you're going to make money off it.
Yeah, exactly.
So it comes right back down to the kernel of what's your intention? So yeah, I think, it's like, how wholesome are you at the beginning of it?
And also, I think with NFTs, similar to fine art, sometimes it's not even about the art, it's about who's owned the art as well. Let's say, I know that Justin Bieber owned this NFT that was really not that great, and then he went and wanted to pass it on, and then that like tripled 10 times in price. And it's the same in the art world, where you'll have a painting and then someone else will own it of like let's say a certain stature and whatever, and then it will become a lot more, like, I guess, worth more than it originally was. With NFTs, that's a lot more, that's like a lot easier in terms of like the whole consumer process. But yeah, does anyone have any other questions about NFTs? No? I don't know. Do you want to say anything to kind of round it off, the conversation?
Yeah, I think 3 words: reject all cookies, right?
They'll come up for you. You know what? I actually do that now, because we did some cybersecurity training at my work, and ever since then I've been like so on it. Like I'll actually read through the cookies and reject them all.
That's it.
It's so boring, but it's like a thing I do now. And once you do get in the habit of it, you realize that a lot of the cookies are like whack.
Yeah, exactly.
What is this?
Exactly.
I do not have access to
No,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, and then like honestly, like one of my laptops is just completely rigged. I've given up with it. It's definitely like a walking virus. So, but no, I don't use that one anymore, by the way. But yeah, it can get to a point where almost it's like so virus. You can't. There's no hope anymore. Even if I reject cookies, it's done.
Yeah.
But if you do have a new laptop and you're trying to make ways and protect your privacy and protect your data, then definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like a walking virus would be really good for breakdancing in the next room. So for the next event that we're going to have.
Actually, now we've got a walking virus coming in now, dressed up as a virus. Thank you so much.
No problem.
For doing this talk. I hope
My
you guys
pleasure.
enjoyed it. Yeah, that's it. So we're gonna get a DJ on here now. There's drinks over there. There's a game in the next room. You know the drill. The drinks are cheap, guys. They're actually very cheap. So get drunk, have a good time. If you want to come say hello to any of us, we're very friendly people. So come on over.